All right, let's get started. Thank you everyone for joining us today. We're so excited to be hosting this session to get everyone started on their path to planning their own walk for Wenjack. I wanted to start today by starting us in a good way by acknowledging that folks are tuning in from coast to coast, and I'd like to encourage everyone to take a moment to consider the traditional territories of First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people on which you may be tuning in from today. As we are all on the journey of reconciliation together, please take this time to acknowledge, pay respect, and think about our relationship to the land, animals, creatures, water, and people with whom we engage on a daily basis. At the national level, we are all treaty people, and we recognize the original inhabitants of unceded lands. Through our shared history, we wish to acknowledge our relationship in that manner while taking a moment to pay our respects to each other. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Angela Reed. I'm the Manager of Development and Partnerships at the Gord, Downie, and Chanie Wenjack Fund, and I have the pleasure of hosting this webinar alongside Rebecca, who is our Legacy Schools Coordinator.
Hey, everybody.
Today we are going to go through a brief history of what Walk for Wenjack is. We have some folks joining us to provide us with some amazing examples of previous Walk for Wenjacks that they've hosted. We'll go through a quick how-to to register as a team or an individual. We have some awesome resources that are coming out as well, and then we'll do a quick Q&A at the end of the session. Most of you are familiar with the Gord, Downie, and Chanie Wenjack Fund, but for those of you who may be encountering us for the first time, we build cultural understanding and are creating a path toward reconciliation between Indigenous and non-Indigenous peoples. And our goal is to improve the lives of Indigenous people, and we do this through building awareness, education, and connections between all peoples in Canada. The Gord, Downie, and Chanie Wenjack Fund is a part of Gord's legacy and embodies his commitment and that of his family to improving the lives of Indigenous peoples here in Canada. And in collaboration with the Wenjack family, the goal of the fund is to continue the conversation that began with Chanie's residential school story and to aid our collective reconciliation journey through our work. We achieve our mission through our Legacy Schools and Legacy Spaces program, our Secret Path Week campaign, which we'll go into more detail shortly, and through our Indigenous History Month events every June. And as we start to think about Secret Path Week, and as we start to think about Walk for Wenjack, I just wanted to remind everyone that ReconciliACTIONs are a key component of Secret Path Week, and we hope that all of our Legacy Schools, Legacy Spaces partners, as well as other companies, organizations, and peoples in Canada will engage in ReconciliACTION. And we really promote ReconciliACTIONs during Secret Path Week, but our ReconciliACTION can take place at any time, at any place. So on to Secret Path Week, which is why we are all here today. And so Secret Path Week, commemorates Gord and Chanie's legacies, and it's our chance to honor them through ReconciliACTIONs. And just a reminder that a ReconciliACTION is anything that moves reconciliation forward in a meaningful way. And so that brings us to Walk for Wenjack. Everybody has their own reason for participating in Walk for Wenjack. For some, it's a chance to honor Chanie and the 150,000 Indigenous children and youth who are taken to residential schools. For others, it's an opportunity to raise awareness and move reconciliation forward in their community. Every Walk for Wenjack is unique. I'm going to play a short video that just provides a bit more information about Walk for Wenjack, and then I'm going to throw it over to Rob, who is one of the co-founders of Walk for Wenjack, to share a bit more about how and why the walk came to be and the vision for it moving forward.
She gave me matches
7 wooden matches. She put them into a small, slim glass jar with a screw-top lid. I fingered that jar. I put it in my pocket. She said, can't go into the woods without them. I smiled at her and left. And I kept them dry. And as long as there was 6, I'd be fine.
Over to you, Rob.
That's great. Thanks, Angela. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, you sound great.
So thanks for having me, and thanks everyone for joining. Really appreciate everyone coming together and wanting to learn more about what this walk is all about. And as Angela said in the little video there, it started in 2016. And I don't have too much time here, so I'll give you a very, very high level kind of overview. But it started at the time when a band by the name of the Tragically Hip were just wrapping up their final tour. But more importantly, it was a time I believe the country was relearning the impact that residential schools had on so many. It was also a time when I was involved in a number of different fundraisers, at that time focused on the Gord Downie Fund for Brain Cancer Research. But that evolved to something that Gord spoke very passionately about. And that was about Canada's dark history and its involvement with residential schools. And that, of course, led me to learn more about Chanie Wenjack's story and like him, who never made it home. So when the Tragically Hip ended that tour, I felt like we needed to do more and do something. Really became part of an idea about bringing Indigenous and non-Indigenous together as part of my reconciliation journey. And so I vividly remember a phone conversation that I had with a friend of mine at the time. He called me one day when we were doing some activities and some events, and he said to me, he goes, do you want to go for a walk? And he said, and he went on saying, let's head up north and retrace Chanie's steps. He went on to say, let's finish the walk that Chanie had set out to do. And I said, are you crazy? Do you know how far that is? And he said, yes, I am. And it's 600 kilometers. And literally just like that, Walk for Wenjack was born, Indigenous and non-Indigenous kind of walking hand in hand. And so it was a number of conversations that I guess started in late October of 2016. We had about 3 weeks to really organize all the logistics. For some of you that know that the climate in the Kenora, Ontario area can get pretty chilly and cold quite quickly in November. So we had to pull this off pretty quickly. And luckily we had the support of so many people like Mike Downie and Chief Alvin Fiddler, Chief Kavanaugh, and so many great volunteers at Grand Council Treaty Number 3, which actually, if we can click to the next slide, then you can get a high level. Is that, yeah? So this is just an aerial view of where Kenora is, where Agoki Post is. Agoki is where Chanie was ventured off to get home. If you click again, this is basically just a high level map or route that the Chanie needed to walk. It was 600 kilometers or 787,000 steps, and certainly not an adventure fit for a 12-year-old boy. The vision has always been for the walk to really create a Terry Fox-like movement, right? How do we get children specifically right across the country participating in an annual event? And the idea is collectively, how do we accumulate those 600 kilometers and get Chanie home. Certainly, we couldn't do this in the time that we had. You know, it would take about 2 weeks to walk this particular journey. So if you click on the next slide, what this is a high-level view of the route that Chanie actually took. Down below would be Kenora. This is where his residential school was, Cecilia Jeffrey Indian Residential School. If you click on it again, I think maybe twice here, this will basically, I'll show you just a few pictures of the experience. Maybe click one more time. The experience of what it was like retracing his steps. This, who some of you know, is the monument that sits today at where the residential school once stood. In honor of all the children, it says it's an incredible space. If you click again, there still remains of certain equipment and buildings. This is the actual swing set that Chanie once played on, I'm sure with many of his friends at the time. If you click again, there was ceremony, of course. That's myself and Mike Downie there, just performing a quick smudge. That was a local elder who participated in that as well. If we just click again, this is, you know, part of the route. This was about 5 or so kilometers in. Just some beautiful scenery and landscape in this part of the province. Lots of lush and picturesque spaces in the area, of course. If we click through it again, as I said, the weather was quite cold. You can see us all bundled up there. Out front, you can see Mike and Pearl Wenjack there, leading the charge, of course. Let me click through again. I alluded earlier about some volunteers at Grand Council Treaty Number 3, some incredible volunteers, and every 5 kilometers or so, we had these little rest stops, and they had drink and some food for us. There was ceremony, there was song, there was fire lit throughout the journey. It was quite an incredible experience. So here we're probably about 20 so kilometers into the walk. If you click again, this is where we made it to Reddit. This was the original walking team. On the far left is Terry, my friend Jason. Next to Jason is Stacy, and then myself. We're part of the team. So this was in Reddit. We didn't continue. If you click on the next slide, when you look east, this is what you see. These are the tracks that Chanie embarked on, the secret path, if you will, that he walked on. And it was at this point we ended our journey. This is a very unsafe area to walk. Trains are passing through this area on a regular basis, and so we ended our walk here. But Chanie walked another 15 kilometers or so. If you click on the next slide, this is, and one more time, in Farlane, Ontario. This is where he laid to rest. He just could not succumb to the environment and the conditions that were there, unfortunately. And so this is where we ended our journey. But since then, we've done some other walks in the Toronto area. Unfortunately, due to the pandemic, we haven't been able to gather, but we've moved to more of an online format, which we'll talk more about it today. But anyways, I wanted to give everyone a quick little experience of what it was like in Kenora for the first walk, and hopefully we'll continue with a similar type of walk in the near future. But in the meantime, let's get together online and focus our efforts in a more local way across the country. So thanks. Back over to you, Angela.
Thanks so much, Rob. That was really wonderful. And so pleased that you were able to share those photos with us today. So now I'm going to throw it over to Rebecca, and we're going to have some examples from legacy schools.
Hi, everybody. So the Legacy Schools program is a free national initiative to engage, empower, and connect students and educators to further reconciliation through awareness, education, and action. Schools and educators are provided with free toolkits and resources and everything needed to confidently teach students about reconciliation and the true history of Indigenous peoples and residential schools in Canada. And so we have some special guests with us. We have some educators who did some amazing reconciliations regarding walks for Wenjack. And the first educator we have with us is Sabrina. And she is going to talk about a reconciliation she did with her kindergarten class. And she's from James Short Memorial School in Calgary. So feel free to take it away, Sabrina.
Hello, everyone. First of all, I just want to say how honored I am to be part of this. So thank you for inviting me. My name is Sabrina Donamo, and I teach kindergarten at James Short Memorial School in Calgary. Our education assistant is Miss Anne. She is not able to join the webinar because she's with my kids right now in class, but she was a big part of our mission last year. So I'm here today to share the story of how a kindergarten class worked hard to make a difference and honor Chanie Wenjack as part of our ReconciliACTION. Last year for Orange Shirt Day, a grade 1-2 class challenged every child and teacher in our school to walk 1 to 2 laps each around our dry pond in our schoolyard so that we could get a total of 900 laps around the dry pond. They had calculated that 900 laps would be approximately the same distance that Chanie Wenjack had left to walk home when he was on his journey. So with kindergarten students being so young, I really wanted to explain Chanie's story in a way that they would be able to understand and kind of grasp the deep concepts. So I began by explaining the basics of his story. He'd gone to the residential school. The children weren't treated well there. They took away their personal clothing. They forced them to wear their clothing. They cut their hair. They weren't allowed to see their family for many, many, many sleeps. And sometimes they weren't even fed proper food. After hearing this, how Chanie and other children at residential schools were treated, my kindergarten students showed an empathetic side that I have not seen before in kindergarten. That was my 10th year teaching kindergarten. Many students were really upset, some of them saying that's not okay, that's not fair, while others were asking how could they do this to children? And I said, you know what, I have the same questions. So from there, our mission really took on a life of its own, with empathy fueling our desire to make a difference. We walked 1 lap each that first day and submitted a total of 19 laps. There were 17 kids, myself and my EA. We submitted the 19 laps to the grade 1-2 class. And then the next day, the students asked, can we walk again in Chanie's honor? And I was blown away. I said, of course we can. I got the Secret Path book, and I shared with them some images from that book and kind of discussed some of those images with them. And then we went on the walk again. The third day, the students came in and told me they wanted to walk every day in kindergarten to honor Chanie and help him get home. I'm sorry, I get a little bit teary when I think about this whole experience because it was just so overwhelming. So the excitement and the energy in the classroom when they asked to walk every day was just overwhelming. I felt amazed in that moment. These little beings knew what wrongs were done, or that wrongs were done to other children, and they really did want to make a difference. We walked every day in the school year that the weather would allow us. When we walked around our dry pond, we would talk about Chanie, we would talk about different residential school experiences, we talked about the beauty of our schoolyard, the dry pond, and we even looked really closely at the trees and the grass and kind of did mini studies on our walks. After each walk, we would add 1 tally mark for each child, teacher, and EA that walked that lap, and then we would add the tallies every day, counting by 1s, 5s, and eventually 100s. It was an absolutely incredible learning experience. We can go to the next slide. So unfortunately, my class had to go on quarantine multiple times in the spring. The last one ended for us in mid-June. So with 1 week of classes left in kindergarten, I really didn't think there was a way that we would be able to complete the remaining 220 laps out of our 900 lap goal. I told the kids, I did the math, and we might not be able to achieve our goal of 900 laps unless we walked more than 1 lap a day. We had previously walked 2 laps in a day earlier in the school year, and it was, they were way too tired. It was too much for them. And so I told them this, and they started saying things like, well, we'll walk 10 laps a day if we have to, or, Chanie would want us to finish. And so we did. We walked 2 laps every day for that last week. And one day we actually walked 3 laps in a day, which, to put it into perspective, 1 lap is about half a kilometer, and these are little tiny beings doing that. I was so happily surprised at the kids' stamina, their drive to honor Chanie, and their drive to really help him get home. I remember the last day of school when we finished our last lap and we added all the tally marks, and I recorded the kids because I assumed there was going to be a great reaction. And I wish I could share that video with you guys. Due to privacy reasons, I can't, but their excitement was amazing. They were proud. They felt like they had made a true difference, and they knew that Chanie would be proud of them as well. So in closing, these students are our future, and after surpassing our challenge and walking a total of 914 laps, which is about 450 kilometers in 1 school year in kindergarten, I just see such a promising future that has truth and reconciliation at the forefront. And I would like to finish by saying you're never too little or big to make a difference. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Sabrina. Yeah, every time I hear that story, it's so beautiful. It's amazing what kids can learn, and it's gonna just get better as they grow because they had that experience. It's amazing. So we have another educator with us to share another amazing reconciliation inspired by Walk for Wenjack, and that is Jessica Madarada. She's a Indigenous advocate from Kitchener Community School in Regina, Saskatchewan. And Jessica was also a previous member of our Educator Advisory Committee, which starts up again soon. So she took part in kind of making a difference in bettering the program by meeting with DWF and other educators every week. So you can take that away, Jessica.
All right, thank you. I just want to start by saying that was great, Sabrina, the work that you shared there. And I also just want to thank the Gord, Downie and Chanie Wenjack Fund for inviting me to share with the group today. I know there are teachers all across Canada that are working with these resources and planning their own walks. And so I just really appreciate being a part of this space. And yeah, I also really enjoyed my experience being a part of the Educator Advisory Committee. I'd love to still be a part of that work, but my PhD studies have taken some precedence, so I've had to step down. This work also, I wanted to start by saying, is really important to me. My mom was a day school survivor. My grandmother was a residential school survivor, and several members of my family went to residential schools. So this work is really close to my heart. I also have to say a thank you and a shout out to one of my colleagues. He teaches grade 6-7 here. And he is such an ally and accomplice in this work. When I stepped down as a classroom teacher and became an Indigenous advocate teacher, I no longer had a class. And so I've partnered up with him on things, and he just always says yes to me. So I really, really appreciate that. And I wanted to make sure to give him a shout out. And so I wanted to start by just saying that I think the most important thing about planning a walk is just preparing students through learning experiences in the classroom. The walk is just that much more meaningful for students when they have that background knowledge to understand why they are walking. And so, yes, we are a legacy school. We have our 5 kits that we share amongst our staff. We sort of started with a focus on our senior years. And so both of our senior year teachers have the kit. We have an Indigenous Studies program. Some schools have a language class. We do Indigenous Studies here. So he uses this resource, and then myself as the Indigenous advocate teacher. And so when we first got our kits, both our senior teachers started using those resources in their classroom, and they did the walk together the first year. And I do recognize, obviously, with what Sabrina shared about, it doesn't matter the age of the kids participating in this. And so hopefully this year we'll get more of our younger kids involved as well, but we did start at the senior year. And so last year, of course, we couldn't mix cohorts and it was the pandemic, and we also had a lot of shutdowns as well. But our 6-7 class made sure to still do a walk for last year. And I just, yeah, I'm going to be bragging our 6-7 kids up because they're just a really amazing crew. I wanted to share when there was a discovery found in Kamloops. One of our students showed up the next day and was like, we need to acknowledge this history, we need to recognize it, we need to do something. So, you know, as teachers, I guess we were ready to have those conversations, but it was just so beautiful to see our kids show up, and they wanted to have those conversations. And most of our school, we have a majority Indigenous population, so this impacts us so much. It impacts our staff, it impacts our students, especially with a recent discovery in Cowsis. We have students that are connected there. And so one of the ReconciliACTIONs we actually did there, the kids wanted to put up colored ribbons along our fence to recognize each of the students, the bodies that were found there at Kamloops. And we were really lucky. CBC Radio came out and did a piece on them, and it was all driven by the students. So I think that's the powerful part about this work, is that we're almost facilitators as educators, but really the students lead this work for us. And so for me, I've been a classroom teacher in grades 2 to 4. And so I just wanted to share a few different things. We do smudge in our building. It's, I think, a really good trauma-informed approach to take with our students when we're talking about these difficult subjects. And we also have an elder in residence program. So our elder is involved in all of this work as well, to give us that guidance and that advice and to support the work. So yeah, this first slide, here are grade 6-7s. They are going through our community in North Central and Regina. And so they're walking past their houses, by their homes, as they're going on this walk and walking around our building. So again, prior to the walk, the students had made graphic novels in response to each song from Secret Path. And while they were doing this process, each of the students were engaging in their personal stories about the experiences of their family members in residential schools, and they really want to talk about it. They really want that personal connection, because that space is being created for them to talk about it. And like I said, we have a high Indigenous population, so this has a big impact on our school community. And then as you can see, all our kids are, well, some of them are in hoodies because that's the cool thing, but you know, it was a chilly day, and just talking about that piece about on how cold it must have been. And again, the kids, you know, engaging them in those discussions while they're doing the walk. They did some stuff in class, like calculating the percentage of the area they walked compared to the walk that Chanie did, and obviously didn't compare. There was a big difference there. Can we just switch to the second slide? And then, yeah, this is the students writing about why they did it, right? So I think that why piece is just so important. So you can see there's a few of our students shared there, and again, for privacy, we couldn't share all the photos of them. And then in the back on the whiteboard, those are the kids as a group discussion coming up with all those ideas to work with each other. And so I guess one other piece I just want to finish with is that this learning, we never want it to be a one-off experience. And so we are always here thinking about how we make this learning ongoing. How can it lead to other ReconciliACTIONs or other classroom learning experiences? And we just want those conversations to continue past September and October, where there's those natural conversations happening. You know, we try to make it visual in our school, having the flags up or the posters so our kids are seeing that. And yeah, with that, I think I'll wrap up there, and just good luck to everyone planning their own walks or their own ReconciliACTIONs. And thanks again for having me.
Thank you, Jessica. That was really wonderful, and so nice to see all the amazing ReconciliACTIONs that your students took. We're honored to also have many companies and organizations as Legacy Spaces partners. And like our Legacy schools, they are also committed to taking ReconciliACTION every year. For those of you who may be newer to the Legacy Spaces program and are just getting started, Walk for Wenjack provides, similar to the schools, it provides an easy way to engage your employees in ReconciliACTION. And, as we've heard today, even in a time where a lot of us are maybe working from home, Walk for Wenjack is still really easy to execute. So I'm pleased to turn it over to Dave Borens, who's the Community Renewable Projects from the Community Renewable Projects team at Bullfrog Power, and he's going to share more about how they were able to execute Walk for Wenjack last year. Over to you, Dave.
Thank you so much, Angela. And I just want to first off say that the work that the teachers are able to do with the students is really inspiring. And I think that if anybody's worked at a company, they'll realize that, they're not that different from like a classroom of kindergarten kids. And so I think that some of the learnings that you have shared, I think can be applied to make our action better in this year. And so I wanted to also thank you for having me and the ability to chat a little bit about who we are and what we've done, which, again, the efforts that undertaken by these schools are really, really inspiring. And it's really important that the corporate community is aware of this story and this organization. So what we are at Bullfrog Power is a green energy company that empowers individuals and companies to purchase green energy and lower their own carbon footprint as a counterbalance against the emissions that we create through energy use. And our ultimate goal is to lower the emissions of Canadian businesses and individuals as a means of fighting climate change. And one of the things that we got to eventually was an understanding that, you can have a bunch of, kind of urban-based businesses and homes sourcing clean energy, but what really has to happen, and quickly, is a grassroots growth of renewable energy resources, particularly in places across the country that, might have less access to clean energy. And particularly, you can't escape the fact that there are tons of Indigenous communities and other off-grid communities that are reliant on diesel and reliant on, even within provinces that are particularly clean energy based, like BC, you still have communities that are reliant on generators. So we created a community energy program to support small-scale, emblematic green energy projects across the country. And we basically have a grant that we give out to these communities. About a third of them are Indigenous communities. And it's given myself and our company a window into some of the struggles that are faced across the country and an understanding that I would not have had otherwise in a multitude of issues that exist. Another thing that is important to relate, and I'm conscious of time, is that early on in our existence, when we were first being launched as really the only option to purchase green energy, Gord Downie and the Tragically Hip were immediate supporters, to the point where at our second or third anniversary party, this is back in 2007, 2006, something like that, Gord actually came and played a song for us, and he said that we're giving power back to the people, and that was like such an incredible thing. Obviously I grew up, but many people grew up, this whole country grew up listening to Tragically Hip and an icon like that. So when it came time to support this organization, it was a no-brainer for us, something we're really excited about. But the question, of course, comes to how do we do that? We're not always focused on these things, and so great switch. I was just going to say, having a legacy room in our company as a meeting room was a really, really great and emblematic way to do it. And so having, you can see this is a picture of our old office, and those two pictures are taken on the days of when we launched the room and had a ceremony to do so. And having the picture and the information and the pamphlets in the room, we're having external meetings, we're having our company-wide meetings. It's our largest meeting room, and it's called the Legacy Room. So it's inescapable that this is a space connected to residential schools because we make a point of it. If you're getting a meeting at the legacy room, you're wondering, well, why is it the legacy room? It's a way of speaking about it across the to a variety of different people, and that's kind of, I think, the point from the corporate world of having these rooms, having a space where it comes up again and again. Now, talking about this pandemic that we all continue to be affected by, I haven't been in my office since March of last year, and our office has actually moved, so I don't actually know what our new legacy room looks like. I haven't been there, and last year it was evident that we had to think outside the box, and so we kind of came to our own conclusion that wouldn't it be great if we could try and do a walk for Wenjack and try and cover the distance like across the company wide. We're on not a huge amount of company, not a huge amount of employees, but if we could each take just a section of it in our own personal day, each day, by using our step counts, it would not only promote like sort of physical activity and wellness, which is certainly an issue when we're all stuck inside all the time, and particularly in the fall months, but also it was a way of having it as a challenge that we could all talk about and focus on our relationship with Downie Wenjack. And so I believe each employee walked an average of 27 kilometers. We logged it. 25 employees took part in it, and it wasn't hard to hit the goal. It was just something very simple that we could do, and as a group, online as an activity. You can see, if you flip to the next slide, you can actually see our this is what we did, a simple spreadsheet, and obviously Bonnie didn't walk very much, but Angelica covered up for what Bonnie did, and Scott down there, you could see he was a beast out there covering up for everybody's mistakes, and it just get a chance to encourage people to get outside and really make this a part of our lives. And I will say that there's things we can do better. I think that some of the ideas of focusing on the why each person is individually walking is something that we could do a little bit more of. I think that it would be an easy way for us as an organization, even though we do support Downie Wenjack Fund financially, maybe this is a chance for us to also do some fundraising individually to participate. We're doing this. I think it's another opportunity that we have to explore, thinking about doing that this year. But it just as hey, this is a grassroots thing we can do. It was really simple and really fun. And I don't know if there's another slide, but that's sort of our story, hopefully told in not too lengthy a manner. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, Dave. That was really wonderful. And, I think even if it's only a kilometer or two, contributing to the overall goal and getting to that, 600 plus kilometers is really incredible for a group of, 25. So, in the corporate world standards, quite a small team. So congratulations, and love to hear that you're already thinking about how you can improve on it this year. Thank you. That's also a great segue into the next section of our presentation, which is just a little bit more about how to actually get started, setting up your teams. So as the Gord, Downie, and Chanie Wenjack Fund, we have set a fundraising goal of $60,000. This is $100 for each of the 600 kilometers Chanie needed to get home. But really the purpose of the walk is not fundraising. The purpose of the walk is getting folks out in their community as a group, as an individual, to reflect on Chanie's story and the story of the 150,000 other Indigenous children and youth who were impacted by the residential school system, and all the families and communities that continue to be impacted today. So who can participate? Anyone, whether they're little kindergarteners, walking around their dry pond, or, folks in corporate offices. We want you out there walking. As Dave mentioned, it is a really great, mental health break for a lot of us who are stuck in front of a computer screen all day. There's no requirement when it comes to your distance goal, your route, or your timeline. We use Secret Path Week in October to encourage Walk for Wenjacks and other ReconciliACTIONs, but really your walk can take place any time of the year, and it can happen anywhere. It can happen indoors, it can happen outdoors. We do have two options to register. We have a team option as well as an individual option. Even if you're not fundraising, we do encourage you to register as an individual or a team. This just keeps us, this gives us the opportunity to track all of our walkers. If you are from an office or a school and you're not registering every single team member, you can indicate when you register how many folks you'll have walking with you, because we are hoping that this year will be one of the biggest walks in terms of the total number of participants. So when you get to the registration page, again, you can select whether it's an individual, so personal, or on behalf of a company, school, organization. You'll select corporate or group. You can invite folks to join your team, or you can register on behalf of everyone. You can also share your fundraising and or your distance goal in your profile. This just, helps to give us an idea of how many kilometers folks are planning to walk, but also if you're sharing this with others, they can see what your goals are and have fun. If you're coming from a school where maybe multiple classrooms are participating, or your multiple offices from across the country, challenge each other to get those steps in. We really want this to be a meaningful experience, but it doesn't mean that it can't be fun. We're also going to be distributing tons of resources over the coming days. We've developed some social media graphics in both English and French, so you can share those with your followers. Just be sure to tag @Downie Wenjack and use hashtags walk4Wenjack and hashtag do something so that we can track your walks and share it with our followers. There's also a downloadable Walk for Wenjack poster. Educators, you should have received that in your toolkit, but you can also easily download it and print it from offline, and that just is an easy way to post it in your classroom or a communal space if you are back in the office, sharing the details of that walk. And those can all be found online, and we'll be sure to share that link with everyone. And then we're also going to be sharing a ReconciliACTION Toolkit. If you're signed up for our newsletter, you should be receiving access to this. And this just has resources that you can use, again, in planning your walk. We understand that everyone, has an increased workload just due to the nature of how we're working and going to school these days. And so we just want to make it as easy as possible for everyone. And if, there's something that you can't find that you think would be helpful, feel free to reach out to your Downie Wenjack Fund contact, and we'll do our best to support you. And then at the end of your walk, or if you're choosing not to do a walk and maybe you're doing another type of ReconciliACTION, we want to make sure that you are sharing those ReconciliACTIONs with us. So we do have a dedicated section on our website to where you can submit this information. We want to hear from our legacy schools, legacy spaces partners, third-party fundraisers, and others. It's really simple. And we hope to, gather as many of these ReconciliACTIONs as possible, because that gives us the opportunity to share those more broadly and encourage others to take ReconciliACTION. So that covers off everything in the presentation today, but I do know that we have the chat open for any questions. And so I believe between Rebecca and I, we can answer any questions that you have. I believe it's already been shared in the chat, but I did want to just remind everyone that we will be circulating this recording as well as the slides from today's presentation with everyone who registered. So just keep an eye out for those in your inbox. Yes, so Dawn's asking if she can share her recording with her team. Absolutely. You can circulate this to anyone. It won't be, it's not just for those who've registered, it can be for anyone. So any questions that anyone has? Just lots of great comments coming in, lots of kudos to all of our presenters for sharing their thoughts. Yep.
Sorry.
No, that's okay.
There's some questions regarding toolkits. So someone's asking, okay, let's take a look here. Does the registration page include a mileage kilometer tracker for walkers?
We don't have a mileage or kilometer tracker, but easy just to throw together a spreadsheet and keep track if you can. And then for the toolkit, you will likely need to register, I believe, just being subscribed to our newsletter, but we can include information about how to get access to the toolkit when we circulate the recording and the slides from today.
Awesome. So the next question, Ryan is asking, do I need to register further to receive the toolkit? So on our website, or legacyschools.ca, there is a registration form. As soon as you sign up, it will go to our system. And it's usually, right now, most of the toolkits for educators that have already signed up will be there by the end of September. And if you do that registration now, it might take a little longer because there's a big influx of kits going out, but usually it's about a month, 2 weeks to a month before you'd receive your kit. And that's the steps for that. Definitely, Ryan, if you have further questions, maybe just type them into the chat, or I'm not sure if anyone could turn on their microphone. Does the website or the app allow me to enter my staff's email address?
And so that's if to register them as a member of your team for Walk for Wenjack. I would encourage you to register to create that team and then share the link so that they can join the team. And then, as I'm not sure there's a way for you to enter their email addresses for them.
Okay. Jana, you have a question? Your hand's up. Jana? Okay, I think there's a few more in the chat.
Sorry, hi.
Hi.
Sorry about that. I'm all too new to this. So if I like to organize a walk in a very small town, what would be the best way to start, please?
Is this with community members or
Yes,
with your community members?
Yes.
I think, yeah, so the best way to do that would be to figure out a way to communicate this opportunity. So maybe there's a Facebook page where members of the community are a part of that Facebook page. Or perhaps, there's a news bulletin, or you could take an ad out in the newspaper. It really depends on the best way to communicate with everyone in the town. And then I would suggest that you go on, register a team for the town, and then have folks join as team members through the registration page for Walk for Wenjack.
Thank you so very much. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Okay, there was a question regarding, okay, that person answered. Let's see here. So someone's asking, Carolyn asked, what if a few of our schools are legacy schools, but we want to do something bigger as a board, whether schools have registered as a legacy school or not? So actually we have some whole school boards who have signed up. So if you first of all, a Walk for Wenjack, it doesn't just have to be legacy schools. It can be, it can also be like corporations, like Legacy Spaces, as Angela was talking about. It could be individual community members. Like it could be people who aren't educators who want to go for a walk. But an even bigger initiative you might be able to do is, because we have had it happen before of whole school board signing up, there's maybe a chance you could try make that an initiative where as many schools within that school board become a legacy school as possible, and then you do a Walk for Wenjack, and that could be 2 ReconciliACTIONs in one. Other than that, you can organize it however you want to organize it. So if you have your school and a few other schools, but you want to include everyone, I mean, there's obviously no limit, to honoring your children who didn't make it home. So
Yeah, absolutely. They don't have to be registered as a legacy school to participate in Walk for Wenjack. That's, as Rebecca's saying, right? The more the merrier, absolutely. And then there's a question just about publishing the posters. So one of the photos that I shared was some graphics that we've designed for social media, Paulette. So if you just go onto the Walk for Wenjack page, there's a button that will take you to those graphics, and that's what you can share on your social media platforms. Absolutely, it doesn't, there's no concern on our end for you to share that. That's why we've created them, because we do want you to promote that you're participating in Walk for Wenjack. Can an individual ask to join a team that has started in another city or province territory other than? Absolutely. So Fran, if you have family members who are located throughout Canada and you want them to join, certainly, again, just send them the link to your team. That's the great thing about Walk for Wenjack, is that it doesn't have to be done all in the same location, and you can have folks joining from throughout the country. In terms of the toolkit, so the ReconciliACTION Toolkit for Secret Path Week, that's available to anyone. The Legacy Schools Toolkit, you do need to be a school or an educator to register for that, and you can do that through our website. And we also have some clubs and groups, so Boys and Girls, BGC Canada, Girl Guides. Anyone can get a ReconciliACTION Toolkit, but you have to be a group or a club or a school or an educator to get the Legacy Schools. And then Julie's asking just to, connect. So I would say, Julie, if you want to email staff at Downie Wenjack Fund, then we can set up some time to chat with you, and we'll have an appropriate member of the team follow up with you. Would probably be the best way. Are there any questions that folks have asked that Rebecca and I may have missed? Just want to make sure that we've caught all of them.
I will say Julie or anyone, if you have like a Legacy Schools question and you want to email, you can actually directly email me as well. So I'll just put my email there. It's legacyschools@downiewenjack.ca, and it'll be me receiving it. So.
Perfect. So if there are no other questions coming in, again, not to keep repeating myself, but we will share this recording and we will share the slides. And certainly if you have any questions or want to get in touch with anyone, staff@downiewenjack.ca is the best email to contact. And we wish you all happy walking. Thanks, everyone.